We're going to move to the next question right after it all costs.
He just laughed in a reporter's face when he asked to follow up on human rights violations. Carney has finally made his first deal. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we got a press conference. Mark Carney asking some questions, gets a little spicy. Most of it addressing his trade deal he just made with China. This trade deal, spoiler alert, it's not that good. I just want to point out one quick thing. There's translation when Mark Carney or Xi Jinping's talking, and I cut out the spaces in between the translation to save you guys time, because otherwise it would sound like that. It's really obnoxious. That's why there's so many cuts. Where the pauses are important, I leave them in. Let's jump into this. Here it is, Mark Carney meeting Xi Jinping. Look how happy he is. He's in his happy place. There it is. Something I want to point out too. This is the first time Xi Jinping has met Mark Carney on this trip. Obviously, Carney's met him before multiple times, but Xi Jinping didn't even come out to greet Mark Carney at the airport. If Trump was there, as soon as Trump stepped off Air Force One, Xi Jinping would be right there on the tarmac. But Mark Carney, no. Xi Jinping sends a few of his goons out there, and Carney meets him on the third day of the trip.
Let's begin the meeting. Prime Minister Carney, welcome to China. And I welcome this great ministerial delegation. I am very pleased to meet you again.
He said it himself, meet him again.
Last October we met in Gyeongju, the Republic of Korea. It was a very good meeting. That meeting, I believe, marked a turnaround in the China-Canada relations and placed it on an upward trajectory. I am ready to continue working with you with a sense of responsibility for the history, for the people, and for the world.
Thank you, President Xi, for your hospitality, for the warm welcome that's been...
Look at them. They're all so nervous. Like the stress on their faces here. Don't say the wrong word or we're going to end up in the Uyghur re-education camps. What is this bonehead doing here?
And for the opportunity that our partnership brings to both our peoples, and I would suggest as well, to the world.
We're not going to listen to his full speech. It's full of a bunch of mumbo jumbo, but listen to this, taking a jab at Donald Trump, contradicting the very reason he got elected.
And this is a relationship that has been distant and uncertain for nearly a decade.
So he's talking about China here, and he's remending this.
That has held back investment. It's stalled business growth and cost Canadian workers good opportunities. It has had the consequence of leaving us even more dependent on our largest trading partner. That's why immediately after the election, Canada's new government began to recalibrate our relationship with China.
Wait a second, I thought you were elected to get a deal with Donald Trump, but instead he, immediately after being elected, he's recalibrating with China? He's giving up his hand here. He wanted to bring us closer to China, to bring their surveillance into our country from day one. He never wanted to get a deal with Donald Trump, and he isn't going to get one with Donald Trump.
President Xi and I are announcing that Canada and China are forging a new strategic partnership. It will focus on 5 key areas where both our nations stand to make substantial and sustained gains. The first is in clean energy and climate competitiveness.
Just notice, this is the first thing he mentions, clean energy and climate competitiveness. That's the number one thing that comes out of his mouth. We can see where this is going.
Areas where Canada and China have immense strengths and complementary strengths. Second, we're expanding trade, particularly in agriculture and food, where Canada is a reliable partner. Fourth, we're deepening engagement in public safety and security to protect our peoples. And finally, people-to-people ties and culture are being enhanced to enrich our lives.
What you'll notice from this and what he announced doesn't line up. So the first thing he said is the C word competitiveness, net zero. They've come out and already said it. Tim Hodgson said it. They all said it. They're working together with China on net zero. But out of this agreement, you don't see much about net zero. He basically just alludes that China's going to invest more in our energy sector. Now let's look at what the deal really is. It's not very good for Canada. We've got China will be able to sell 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles in the Canadian market with a most favored nation tariff rate of 6.1%, which represents 3% of our total autos sold every year. And this will potentially raise to 70,000 Chinese EVs per year over 5 years. On top of that, it says there'll be new Chinese joint venture investment in Canada with trusted partners to protect and create new auto manufacturing careers for Canadian workers and ensure robust build out of Canada's EV supply chain. With this agreement, it also anticipated that in 5 years, more than 50% of these vehicles will be affordable EVs with an import price less than $35,000 a year, creating new low-cost options for Canadian consumers. He basically says like China can come into Ontario and build Chinese EVs, exactly what Doug Ford wanted. Now, as for tariffs, the reason Scott Moe's there, canola seed is dropping down to a tariff rate of 15%, down from 85%. Canola meal, lobster, crabs, and peas will not be subject to relevant anti-discrimination tariffs, as in dropping to zero. And it says Canada expects that. He even says that in his press conference. They expect this to be signed. This is not signed. He's trusting that this will just go through with Xi Jinping, which is ridiculous to come out with a press conference and state this when this is not inked. And what's missing from this? Well, we have canola seed, canola meal, canola oil still has 100% tariff. There's no reduction whatsoever. That's basically it. He says China will be investing in Canadian energy, clean energy, but essentially that's the deal. It's not all that great for Canada, and really this just seems to be opening the door for China to dump more money into our country and get their tentacles in our society more, which they should not be. We should just be selling them stuff. They shouldn't be owning stuff in our country.
We're leveraging our strengths in energy, clean tech, and climate competitiveness. Canada is an energy superpower in both conventional and clean energies. We have an over 80% clean electricity grid with vast potential to power the clean economy of the future.
He just said the word clean 4 times in 2 sentences? It tells you where his priorities are. China is the worst polluter on earth. They're opening up more coal-fired power plants than any other country on earth. And yes, they do have a lot of clean tech because they don't have access to a lot of oil. So they have to do that. Otherwise, they're dependent on countries like Saudi Arabia, Russia, Venezuela. That's why. They're not a net zero country. They're far from it. They're the furthest from net zero.
China's strengths in electric vehicle sector are undeniable. China produces some of the most affordable and efficient energy efficient vehicles in the world. And in order for Canada to build our own competitive EV sector, we need to learn from innovative partners, access their supply chains, and increase local demand. And to help deliver the full potential
You hear that? And increase local demand. He's going to be forcing this down our throats. I think he's bringing back the EV mandate, and he's allowing China to come in to our country and build them. We've already tried this. It's already bankrupt us. Canadian taxpayers have lost tens of billions of dollars because of the Liberals in this nonsense.
Canada has agreed to allow up to 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into the Canadian market. To return under an agreement that promises much more for Canadians.
Yeah, like a pissed off Donald Trump in America, our biggest trading partner. This is going to hurt us badly. He's going to make us pay for this.
It's expected that within 3 years, this agreement will drive considerable Chinese investment in Canada's auto sector, creating good careers in Canada and accelerating our progress towards a net zero future and the auto industry of the future.
There it is. He doesn't care about building prosperity in our country. It's all net zero because he's invested in it. There's got to be some point where Canadians wake up.
Canada intends to double our energy grid through major investments in hydro, nuclear, solar, and wind power. That creates
all things that Brookfield's invested in, all things he's invested in. And some of those things we should be investing in, but he shouldn't be profiting off of it directly. He should have all of his shares sold by the blind trustee. He can be exempt from capital gains tax and reinvested without his knowledge. This is so corrupt what's going on here.
Tremendous opportunities for Chinese partnerships in these investments, including in energy storage and offshore wind.
You just notice energy storage. And who did he just go visit? As I pointed out in the previous video, cattle. One that Brookfield is doing business with. Brookfield owns Oak Tree Capital. They have $1 billion investment in Hartree. And Hartree doing business with cattle. One of the largest battery manufacturers in the world. 38% of market share. This is what he's talking about. That's why he went there. This is a direct conflict of interest because he has financial interest in this. This should be against the law. And if you didn't see the video, this company has been blacklisted by the Joe Biden government to sell these batteries in America by October 2027.
On the other hand, Canada is developing our oil and natural gas reserves, one of the world's largest, to be the lowest risk, lowest cost, lowest carbon.
It is not going to be the lowest cost. You can't make it this low carbon utopia and have it be low cost as well. It's going to be high cost, low carbon. That's what it's really going to be. So is China going to be investing in oil pipelines too?
Last June, we exported our first LNG shipment to Asia.
Oh, there it is. It's not going to be oil. It's going to be LNG. And of course, it's going to be tied in with coastal First Nations who are tied in with carbon credits, an activist group funded by leftist American billionaires. So there's a couple other partnerships here, whether it's with tourism, which is just a way to push propaganda into our country, as well as law enforcement, which is an absolute joke.
Through this pillar, our law enforcement agencies will increase cooperation to better combat narcotics trafficking, transnational crime, cybercrime, synthetic drugs, and money laundering.
I'm sure if we had a live view of Sam Cooper watching this, he'd be probably laughing at that statement, considering he just posted, the money flows to the top when it comes to everything he just named there. The Chinese government knows full well what's going on with that stuff. And yet we're going to have a strategic partnership to open up our police forces to China. So jumping over to the press conference here, they asked a few good questions. Carney gets pretty snappy when he gets asked on human rights. He doesn't like that question.
Do you intend to explain it to the U.S. In allowing that entry? And separately, how do you intend to explain it to Canadian car makers who fear any softening on Chinese EVs?
Okay, so you mean the auto portion of the broader partner? Yes, okay. So I think the first thing to say is exactly that it's part of a broader partnership. And the fundamental issue is we have a broader strategic partnership on which to build and create big opportunity. But to get to the auto question and your very...
You can see he just deflected. She asked about the relationship with America, and he made it about cars immediately, so he didn't have to talk about that.
49,000 vehicles. That's a return to levels last seen in 2023. That's less than 3% of the size of the Canadian auto market.
Who's going to want to buy those? You won't be able to drive to America in those. So unless you're never going to go to America ever again, so maybe some leftists will buy those. And where are they even going to sell those things? Are they going to open up a BYD or whatever Chinese dealerships around Canada?
There's huge opportunity here to get more affordable cars in the electric vehicle market for Canada. The fourth element...
That's not what Canadians want, though. We don't want these electric vehicles. There's already more than enough for Canadians who want to buy them. If they want to buy them, go buy them. We don't need more of these. Canadians need vehicles that work in the winter in minus 30.
The beginning of discussions and expectation of Chinese investment in Canada and partnership in Canada to produce vehicles over time. So to partner with Canadians.
Now he does eventually address America,
which is vis-a-vis the U.S. I think we need to look at this in the context of building. I mean, we're building a new part of our car industry, building cars of the future in partnership.
Cars coming from a country that America absolutely has banned and wants nothing to do with.
Bringing affordable autos for Canadians at a time when affordability is top of mind, and doing it at a scale that allows for a smooth transition in the sector. Thanks.
This is not going to be a smooth transition. The next question here, I don't like how his face reacts when he's asked this question about election interference.
CSIS has called China an enduring threat to Canadian tech and democracy, and some in the auto sector have said that Chinese EVs could pose a national security risk if allowed into Canada. And your plan is to increase the number of those EVs that are coming into Canada every year. Did you get any assurances from President Xi that China would stay out of elections, for example, and sensitive sectors before allowing more Chinese investment in many sectors, including the auto sector?
So
before he answers that, look at his mouth there when she said election interference. And also you'll notice he's fidgeting, he's moving around, he's looking down and stuff when mentioning foreign interference and all this stuff. Watch the corner of his mouth here when she says election interference. What this is a micro expression. We all have these. We are reacting to something, and then when we realize we're reacting to it, we pull it back to not show what our true reaction is. Say in a situation where someone says, "What do you think of my dress?" And you're like, yeah, it looks great, but really you don't like the dress or whatever it may be. It's the same situation.
Did you get any assurances from President Xi that China would stay out of elections, for example, and sensitive sectors before allowing more Chinese?
You can see right there, he starts to smile and then he pulls it back.
And sensitive sectors before allowing more Chinese investment.
I don't like what I'm seeing.
The first is, and I'm going to refer to something I said a few minutes ago, which is we're returning to the levels of Chinese automobiles as a cap that we had 2 years ago. Okay. Secondly, just to reinforce, that's less than 3% of the Canadian auto sector. So again, let's keep that keep it in perspective.
But that's going up by 6.5% every year after.
Yeah. But you bring that, you compound that growth, and you're getting to about 70,000 vehicles at year 5, although the agreement has it reviewed after year 3. So again, it's still in low single-digit proportion of the size of the Canadian auto sector. Canadians buy about 1.8 million autos a year, just to put it in context. The second thing, but you asked, you had autos mentioned, but then you asked, if I may, a deeper question around our relations, and as you said, foreign interference, transnational aspects. The first thing I'd say is that part of the agreement includes a security aspect, greater cooperation between law enforcement on a series of cross-border crime issues. That's the kind of progress we need in order to address a range of issues, including...
No, we don't. We don't need that kind of progress. I don't trust this guy at all.
...illicit narcotics, but as well as interference. And then the second is
Yeah, just glazed right over that interference because it worked in his favor that Xi Jinping was campaigning for him during the last election.
That we have an understanding. These are some of the issues that we discuss in terms of our expectations in Canada, our red lines in terms of preventing foreign interference, not tolerating foreign interference, and addressing it when we see it. And as Prime Minister, I've always taken this extremely seriously, just from the point when I got
Oh, yeah, you really did with Paul Chang, didn't you?
my security clearance well before I was elected leader of the Liberal Party. Thank you.
Oh, of course, taking a jab at Pierre Poilievre. This guy's unbelievable. So we got a journalist here asking him, what is the New World Order?
Hey, Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg News. Yesterday, when you met with Premier Lee, one of the things you said in the public remarks was this partnership with Canada and China, this new partnership, sets us up well for the New World Order. What did you mean by that? What is the New World Order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing, plurilateral deals, if I can use that term, Trans-Pacific Partnership, the potential linkages between transportation.
This guy just goes on to word salad.
And the EU. Where is financial regulation, payment system regulation going to fit into that? All of these...
Payment regulation system. I wonder who has that. If I were a betting man, I would think the payment regulation system he's talking about is none other than Stripe, the one that created the Frontier program, which created the carbon credit system, the very same Stripe that Mark Carney has listed as one of his self-administered holdings in his RRSP right there. Could it be that? The gig is up, Carney. We know exactly what you're doing.
I mean, use fancy words like the architecture, the multilateral system that has been developing these is being eroded, to use a polite term, undercut, use another term. So the question is, what gets built in that place? How much of a patchwork is it? How much is it just on a bilateral basis? Or where do like-minded countries in certain areas? So like-minded countries, just to be clear, doesn't mean you agree on everything. Aspects, for example, on digital trade or agricultural trade. Climate finance is another area.
Of course it's climate finance, because that's exactly who he is. That's his company, G-Fans.
To move into areas of geostrategy, geosecurity, you will have different coalitions that are formed.
So next up, we got a question here on human rights. Carney doesn't like this question. No, he doesn't.
I know that you're talking about China offering stability. There are still, of course, though, concerns in this country about human rights,
yes,
about freedom of expression. I'm wondering where those fit into your calculations. Are these things that Canada just can't afford to think about because we've got to diversify our markets?
No, we fundamentally stand up for human rights. We stand up for democracy, territorial integrity, rights to self-determination. We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That's
an awful thing to say. We take the world for what it is and not what we wish it to be. I think Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are going to take that clip and then they're going to contradict it with one of Pierre Poilievre saying, you don't have to live like this anymore. It wasn't like this before the Liberals were in power and it won't be once they're gone. This guy basically wants to try to make Canadians feel like we can't go back to how good it was before. You have to live in today's reality. This is a message trying to take hope away from Canadians. Listen to that again.
We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means the following. We do engage with countries. We calibrate that engagement depending on our values and our interests. So that engagement is more narrow when there are those issues. We also have, if you will, a sort of value-based realism to the approach. In other words, we will engage on those issues. We'll engage with coalitions on those issues because that has more influence. And we will form coalitions with those countries with which we share those broader values.
He's trying to make China's human rights violations okay because, well, we look at the way the world is and not the way we want it to be. That's an awful message. And sure, yeah, we need to look at how things actually exist. But the way he's framing it here, he's using it to dismiss their human rights violations. and then saying, well, we're going to have guardrails in place and we'll work with them in a way that we can work with them. And we'll just ignore that stuff. This is ridiculous. And that's why I say we should sell them things, but we shouldn't have them in our country. They shouldn't be buying land. They shouldn't be buying properties. They shouldn't have investments in our country. We should be selling them stuff.
Give you a current example of the last point, which is we are a member, as you know, of the Coalition of the Willing to back Ukraine. That is an example. Those countries in that coalition, over 30 countries, share values on a broad range, including all of those that I just mentioned. With other countries, our engagement is more narrow, it's more specific, and we keep within those guardrails. And for those relationships, we're very clear about where we will cooperate, where we differ. We'll have those engagements, but in a way that looks to make progress.
Can I just ask you a follow-up, sir? Like in your meetings over the last couple of days, did any of these issues come up?
Yes. Yes.
Could you be a little more like?
That was your follow-up.
I guess so. How did you discuss that in your?
We're going to move on to the next
How
question.
did you discuss that in your questions?
We're going to move to the next question right after it. En français, oui.
En français,
He just laughed in a reporter's face when he asked a follow-up on human rights violations. And did you guys talk about it? Yes. He interrupted him while he was saying it. Yes. Then he shrugged at the camera, looking at all the other reporters like, can you believe this guy? He wants a follow-up. This guy flew all the way from Canada to get a follow-up question. I answered it with a one-word answer, and he thinks he can get more from me? This guy's such an arrogant jerk.
Thanks. Maria Chang from Reuters. Just for a follow-up.
So we really know where the pressure point is. It's human rights violations. It's foreign interference. We already know this, but I mean, clearly he just told us with his reaction there. He didn't like that question. He didn't want to talk about it. He got really upset when he had a follow-up. He didn't want to have a follow-up because he already tried to word salad his way out of that question. Then you get asked again. Carney's got a short temper.
Can you tell us specifically how you raised these concerns about human rights? Did you address the issue of things like Jimmy Lai, concerns about Taiwan, violations of human rights in China in your discussions with President Xi?
Well, a couple of things. One is with respect to Mr. Lai, Canada led a G7 statement in the course of recent weeks calling for his humanitarian release, a foreign minister's statement.
So Jimmy Lai has a newspaper called Apple Daily in Hong Kong. When Hong Kong became part of China, China took it back over. Jimmy Lai was jailed because it's a pro-democracy newspaper. Carney coming out with a statement, leading a statement, that doesn't mean anything. China doesn't care about his statement. They're not releasing Jimmy Lai.
These issues were raised in our broader discussions over the past few days. With respect to One China and Taiwan and expectations are a long-standing policy. I think I answered this earlier, but just to be clear that we had a clear exchange in terms of what our policy is and a reaffirmation of, as I say, our long-standing policy.
Yeah, his long-standing policy is to pull his MPs out of Taiwan as he goes to China to send a message to Xi Jinping who he bows to.